Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. We'll be doing a Valentine set and jumping right into our prep with my beautiful mother-in-law. So starting off here, I did use a steel cuticle pusher to push back the proximal fold and expose any dry cuticles or any dry skin that is attached to the natural nail plate. This here is a very safe cuticle bit. It is diamond, so it is not going to be too abrasive or cut your client. If you're using it on yourself, I definitely recommend using it at a slower speed to learn before using on anyone else. I currently have mine at closer to 7,000 RPMs, but you may want to start off somewhere between 3 and 4 just to get a little bit more comfortable. Now, once you are comfortable, I'm going to show here how I use it. I do like to use it both forward and reverse. I'm going to hold that parallel as much as possible to remove any debris from the natural nail plate. And then at the same time, while moving back and forth, I am going to go ahead and go underneath the living tissue there of the proximal fold using just the tip of the bit itself. That's going to get right underneath and remove anything that you wouldn't be able to see with the cuticle pusher, as well as get your proximal fold lifted so you don't necessarily have to use cuticle nippers. Now in this video, I'm not going to use cuticle nippers. I want to show the different bits that I use with clients that are very safe and you are not going to cut anybody just until you're a little more comfortable. And I do believe in most, if not all states, it is actually very frowned upon, and I want to say illegal to use cuticle nippers. Although the skin is dead, there are a lot more chances for you to have an accident and actually cut your client's living tissue. So Russian manicures altogether have been pretty much a thing of the past, at least here in the United States. It is a shame though, because I do believe that they're very beautiful, but if done incorrectly, you are more susceptible to either injuring yourself or somebody else. Next, I'm going to go in with a different small cuticle bit. Now this one is not fine. It is a medium cuticle bit, but I'm going to use that, as you see, to remove even more of the dead skin that still was on the nail plate. And I am going to push slightly into that proximal fold so that way it's going to remove any of the dead skin that's close to the plate. This is just going to help with our adhesion when we are placing our gel tips. And today we will be doing gel extensions, otherwise known as Gel X. Now, once the natural nail bed is exposed and it is cleansed, I'm going to go in with a medium sanding band. You want to use medium or fine. It is totally up to you in preference, and I do prefer to use a medium sanding band with very light rotations and super soft or light touches to the nail plate itself. This is going to further cleanse or push back the cuticle. It does save some time, and it's also going to rough the surface of the natural nail so that you will be ready for getting into the application of your gel extensions. Here I do have mine in reverse, and I know I'm right-handed, but I do like to pull the actual drill towards me rather than towards the client. So I run it in reverse, and I do use it at about a 4,000 to 5,000 RPM, so it's actually very, very light. I'm then going to turn it up to about a 10,000 RPM and use it to lightly buff or etch the inside of the gel extensions. This is going to make it easier for the gel to actually adhere to the natural nail plate and further help with retention. So once you're done etching the nail, you are going to want to cleanse the nail palette and dehydrate to remove any oils. I'm going to use a small nail brush here, and it's very stiff, so it gets right up to that cuticle line. And taking Young Nails Swipe, we're going to go over the nails 2 times. I also really like the protein bond from Young Nails. I do see up to 2 months of wear for my clients with their gel extensions. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't tried Swipe and Protein Bond as your dehydrator and primer, definitely try that out. I do swear by it, and it is totally worth the money. Now next, when it gets into application, I'm going to use my Apres Extend Gel. This is going to be scrubbed into the natural nail plate. Now the reason that I like to scrub it in is because since you dehydrated and primed, you now have a sticky layer that's going to help with adhesion, but you have to remember that you did rough up the surface. So with it being roughed up, there are grooves and valleys that if you just float the product over and paint it like regular nail polish, it isn't going to adhere to the entire nail. So if you look here, we are scrubbing into the surface itself, and then I paint down to make sure that there's no lumps and bumps before actually adhering the gel extension or the soft gel tip. So once again, just go ahead and scrub in very close to the cuticle line. Be very careful not to touch it. If you do get some on the skin, make sure to cleanse that before you do your 60-second cure. So once your nails have been fully cured, this is what they'll look like, and now you are ready to actually adhere your soft gel tips. If you have any questions about anything that I use, I definitely do try to put everything in the description box, but definitely leave me a comment if you have any additional questions. This here is a rechargeable UV lamp, and I'm using it to flash cure the nails on. So you are going to get some of that extend gel, cover the inside of your soft gel extension. Don't be scared when you're first learning to do too little, because you can always go back and add more. But you're going to want to start off at a 45-degree angle, put that close but not next to or not touching the cuticle skin itself or that proximal fold, and then slightly rock the soft gel tip downward so that way you can flash cure it into place before doing a full cure. So I'm going to show just a short clip of me doing each nail, and then once we are done, we'll get into the next step. Once you have done a final cure, and that's for 60 seconds on the soft gel extension, then I personally like to actually buff the entire surface of the nail before applying any gel products or any design. This is completely up to you, but during this time while I'm using my e-file to buff, it is medium grit. I like to go in and seal the cuticle. You can also use a 5-in-1 or even a safety barrel bit to do the same thing with sealing the cuticles. Next, I'm going to wipe away any of the debris that was left behind from that, and personally I just use, again, my Young Nails swipe solution. I pretty much use it all the time. And then I'm going to finalize the shape. Now these are pre-shaped tips, so there's not much to do. They are one of my favorites. They're by Apres, and they are the long natural shape. So there's not too high of a C curve, but I do find that it is very complimentary to about 90% of my clients. So I'm just going to go in and further define the side walls, make them really crisp and smooth, and then on that free edge as well. The actual file that I use came in a pack on Amazon. I will try to include the link, or at least the information, inside of my description box, but if you have any questions, definitely let me know. This is an 80-100 grit, and I like to let everyone know when you are doing shaping, please make sure to turn your client's hand so you can see it from their point of view. Sometimes when filing just looking one way, you can miss, or it can be a little bit off. So make sure that you also turn it how your customer is going to be looking at it, and make sure that they are very straight. After that, I am going to go ahead and go into the design itself. For today's set, I'm going to do a very soft natural ombre. So using a milky white color rather than a very stark or bright white, I'm going to paint that about halfway down, pretty much up to where their nail bed underneath actually is shown. And I'm going to do this just on the 4 fingers. I like to do thumbs last, so for the video purposes, you will see the design on the 4 fingers, and then of course off camera I finished the thumb. But we'll go ahead and get that painted in. Now, because it is a milky white, you don't necessarily have to be super cautious because you are going to ombre over it. So you'll just paint this on and then pop it in for 30 seconds. Once that comes out from the quick 30-second cure, you are going to just want to choose a complementary cover color. That would be nude, of course, for the ombre to blend the milky white into. I am going to apologize in advance because I could not find my ombre brush. So I do end up doing the ombre with my fingertip, and that is going to help melt the color into one another. But this is not something that you want to do for obvious sanitary purposes, but also it does expose you to potentially actually getting contact dermatitis because you're touching the gel with your bare hands. So I do apologize in advance. Definitely do as I say and not as I do when it comes to this ombre specifically. And there are plenty of ways to do it. I did attempt to do it with this sponge that I had found, and it was just not working for me. So again, do not do this. Don't use your fingertips. Yes, it does end up blending really nicely, but at the end of the day, you don't want to contact or get anything on your fingers that's going to cause an allergic reaction. And of course, it is not hygienic. So moving on from my clear mistake there, I definitely should have found the ombre brush first. We are going to repeat the process, but instead with a light pink color. This is pretty translucent, so it's actually just going to further cover up that ombre itself, but it doesn't really have much color, so it's just adding a little bit or a little hint of pink to that tan color and bring a little bit more like of a healthy hue to the natural nail plate, while further kind of hiding where the milky white and the tan actually met each other. Next, we're going to go ahead and cleanse the sticky layer off of the nails since they are fully cured. And this is what they will look like. They are absolutely beautiful, but please trust me and use an ombre brush or even an ombre sponge, I think they're called. And that would definitely be more hygienic and a little bit better. So the next step here, I am going to go ahead and do my preferred method before doing any type of nail art, and that is putting a top coat that is matte. I find that if the surface is too slippery, like with a shiny top coat, it's a little bit harder for me to do the nail art really well. So I'm going to take my Kupa matte top coat. If you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend it. It is my favorite, and I'm going to coat just a thin layer on all 4 nails and get that cured for a full 60 seconds. It isn't sticky afterwards, but just to make sure that there's nothing going to interfere with the nail art, I am going to go ahead and just take a lint-free wipe and clean off the nail surface with some isopropyl alcohol. And then moving into the nail art itself, I am going to go ahead and take my palette here and start mixing the colors for my conversation hearts. I did look at some pictures because I wanted to make sure that I had the correct colors, and the colors I had were pretty close, but they are definitely more neon or a bit brighter. So I'm going to put them here on my little nail palette and then take a bit of white so that way I can get them to be a little more pastel like the conversation hearts are themselves before actually using them for the art. Okay, so starting off here on the pointer index finger, I'm going to start making the conversation hearts. I went ahead and started on the pointer finger first just so I can kind of see how the design looked before I moved forward and to see what size they needed to be. Now looking back, especially once I get to the end of the video, see how hard it was to write on. I definitely feel like I should have made the hearts just a tad bit wider or even just a little bit bigger overall. But again, this was what I did for my first attempt. So to do the hearts themselves, I do take a dotting tool. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the color that I want to use. I'm going to place 2 dots down. Apologize about Siri's camera here. iPhones are supposed to be the best, and still it zooms in on the nail that I could care less about. So I apologize about that. It does get better a little bit later, but you'll put those 2 dots next to each other, and then using a fine liner brush, you'll connect them downward, and that's going to make the heart for you. So I'm going to flash cure these hearts too in between, just to make sure that I don't rub them or touch them before doing a full cure. And the flash cure will just be after each one for maybe 10 seconds. I'm going to let the music play so you can see, but I'll show you all 4 that I did before getting into the writing. About your whereabouts, I can't keep no conflict with you, boy. Can we just rub it out? I don't want no steady with you, you know you my plug, and I can't shake this habit, no. I've been there, baby. Every reminiscing, every you're missing, you wishing it was different what it was. I've been there, baby. Lost in the universe, lost in no finding us. I've been there, baby. If you wanna have
Chevy drive, look alive, niggas came up on this side, now they on the other side. Oh well, fuck them, dawg, we gon' see how hard they ride. I get racks to go outside, and I split it with the guys. We up on the other side, niggas acting like we tied. I've been gone since like July, niggas acting like I died. They won't be expecting shit when Capo go to slide, cause I told them that we put that shit behind us, but I lied. Hey, look who I'm around, man. If I fucked up, I'ma be downtown, man. Full flow down, man. That's if I get caught, man. Push me to the edge, so it really ain't my motherfucking fault, man. I'm not to blame, man. The fucking industry is cutthroat. I'm not the same, man. And I could let you check the tag. Now I'm rocking name brand. I'm only chasing after bags. Now I got a game plan, and I'm out here with the 700 3i5s. Look alive, niggas came up on this side, now they on the other side. Oh well, fuck them, dawg, we gon' see how hard they ride. I get racks to go outside, and I split it with the guys. We up on the other side, niggas acting like we tied. I've been doing since like July, niggas acting like I died. Boy, I've been watching you.
Okay, so by this point, I kind of already had got into the groove of how big the hearts were going to be, and I had noticed that it was taking a lot more time to cure in between. So I do recommend, if this is the first time for you doing this type of art, to still continue with the flash curing. But for myself personally, I just found it a little bit easier and definitely saved me a bit of time to just do all the hearts at one time and then cure for a full 60 seconds. Once you're done with this, then you are going to be ready for the words themselves. You do want to make sure to do a full cure though, so that all the hearts are fully cured before getting into art, because the other ones were only flash cured. I first wanted to try the method with a really fine like detail or liner brush and some red gel paint to draw, but I found this to be a little bit hard to do because I wasn't able to write as nice as I wanted it to come out. And it was really hard to show you on camera because I had to hold the actual brush just a certain way to try to get the letters. But this was just not what I thought it was going to be. I didn't like how the red was looking on top of the colors. It just wasn't as bold as I wanted it to be and as legible. But additionally, it was just going to take forever to do all of these this way. I did do a quick little flash cure to try to save the progress just in case. But ultimately, I did switch out for an acrylic paint marker. These are really, really good at saving time. They are pretty precise. If you can see here, I was able to write little words in these little conversation hearts. But for Halloween, I absolutely loved them for nail art. You don't have to worry about getting them cured in between because they do dry in the air. And like you can see here, it was super fast. I took more time, I think, trying to figure out what I wanted to actually say on the hearts than what it took to draw them in. This is what they looked like once I was done writing everything in. I did go back and kind of wipe them with some alcohol to change out some of the words if I didn't like them necessarily next to each other. But I did also try to go in with a really thin gel brush, and this was a liner from Beetles. Now, although the liner did actually make a very nice, precise, and thin line, again, it was going to take so long to go in and outline all these hearts that I did actually change method and do that with an acrylic marker as well, which I will show you next. Alright friends, so here we are. If you also used any of the acrylic markers, I want to remind you, just because they're dry, they are not protected, so definitely go in with a top coat of choice. I'm going to go in with my shiny top coat from Kupa because it is my favorite, but you could also use the matte style as well, and I think those would have been super duper cute. To anyone who made it this far in the video, thank you so much for your continued likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. We made it over 900, and I cannot even begin to tell you just how thankful and how blessed I feel. Thank you so much for all of your continued love and support. I intend on definitely having more videos coming out soon, and I look forward to talking to you in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your year, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Hasta luego, muy bien, rapping kilo.